Very good. Item number 3 is a public hearing. Will the clerk please read?
Yes, this hearing is to consider a resolution regarding an amended and restated preliminary award letter between the Housing Authority and Innovative Housing Opportunities regarding the acquisition of property located at 1248 East Lincoln Avenue and a parcel located at 1239 to 1249 East Broadway for the development and operation of a 54-unit senior affordable housing project in which the authority will acquire the site for $3,574,000 and subsequently ground lease to the developer.
Mr. City Manager, is a staff report?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, John Woodhead, Director of Community and Economic Development, will present the item.
Thank you, Paul. On May 2nd, 2016, the Community and Economic Development Department issued a request for proposals in order to utilize Home Investment Partnership Program funds, or HOME funds, for the development of an affordable housing project. Innovative Housing Opportunities, the developer, was the only respondent, and identified the Sandman Motel property and an adjacent vacant parcel generally located at 1248 East Lincoln Avenue for the construction and operation of a 54-unit affordable housing project for seniors. On November 1st of 2016, the authority approved a cooperation agreement with the city and a preliminary funding award letter with the developer, providing for developer's acquisition of the site at a cost of a little over $3.5 million, and the construction of the project, together with the authority's loan to developer of up to another approximately $3 million in Home Community Housing Development Organization, or CHODO funds, which were going to be transferred from the city and allocated to the, and we also provided an allocation of some 53 Section 8 housing vouchers for the project. Staff continues to be supportive of the project. However, due to continued calls for service at the Sandman and in response to feedback from the community, authority staff is proposing that the authority assume the developer's purchase agreement for the site and immediately acquire and close the Sandman, rather than wait for the developer to obtain financing for such acquisition and construction of the project. Under the amended and restated preliminary funding award letter, the authority will acquire the site for the subsequent ground lease to the developer, and the developer will construct and operate the project. The authority will also provide a little over $2.3 million in a loan to the developer using the HOME funds and other funds that the authority has got on hand. The authority's acquisition costs and the loan will be repaid to the authority from 85% of the project's residual receipts, and residual receipts is that which exists after the developer pays off certain debt and certain operating costs. So will be repaid over the 55-year life of this program from what we call residual receipts for both our acquisition costs and the loan that we're making. The Planning Commission considered the project entitlements on May 15 of 2017 and recommended approval to the City Council. The newly appointed Housing and Community Development Commission also has recommended approval of this project to the City Council. And that concludes my staff report.
Okay, now open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any speaker cards for the hearing?
Just one. Homeowners maintaining our environment, and comment period for this hearing is 5 minutes.
Okay, basically this is a scam on the people of Anaheim, taxpayers of Anaheim. I can guarantee you that you people don't know what's going on. You cannot understand it. It takes a real estate attorney to really get an idea what's going on. I think there's only one real estate attorney among you, and it would take her hours to try to explain to you, and you still wouldn't understand. It's a scam, all right? Taxpayers are going to make lots of money. Or excuse me, the developer makes lots of money. The Disney people are getting $10 an hour, and will probably remain getting $10 an hour for the next 10 years at Disneyland, mainly because they're going to get subsidized housing. So essentially the people of Anaheim paying their taxes and whatever, getting ripped off, are going to be subsidizing Disneyland's payroll by giving these people subsidized housing. It's a horrible deal. I'm going to kind of go over it just briefly. It's hard to understand. I'll try to simplify it. But as I said, taxpayers being ripped off, very, very complicated intentionally, so nobody can understand what's going on. They got state money, tax money, federal, whatever, and it just goes round in a circle. And it's intentionally made that way. Now, it starts off, the Anaheim Housing Authority is just another name for the Anaheim City Council. So you didn't even know that. All right, that's another trick. It's not no more city. They changed names. They changed it from City Council now to the Anaheim Housing. And instead of calling them council members, they call them governor board members. All right, and it goes on like this, item after item. Tonight, the 7 city council members will use the so-called and unbelievably complicated housing authority to scam the taxpayers of Anaheim big time. Just as the Anaheim City Council has given away hundreds of millions of our tax money to the Disney Corporation, they are essentially, the City Council are now giving a smaller amount, but significant amount, gifts to influential developers to build slum residential units within the ghetto of Anaheim's for the near minimum wage Disneyland workers. Other cities that have council members who serve the people for the city have developers that take the risk of buying land, building homes on the land, then selling the residential units for a profit, but sometimes they take a loss. Anaheim council members serve themselves using the complicated scam of the housing authority by having the residents of Anaheim take all the risk to lose money, all the risk to develop slum housing, and the developers receive huge profits without any risk at all. That's what you're doing, screwing the people, taxpayers of Anaheim. This public hearing is to scam the people of Anaheim to buy the 28-room Sandman Motel and 2 small properties on Broadway for $3.5 million, which is $1 million more than it is worth. Then the people will give a 55-year loan to the developer, okay, to buy the property from the city for about $1 million less. That's what you're doing. Now, and then he's going to build 54 tiny apartments, 44 of which are only 550 square feet. But the big thing is the whole complex of 54 apartments will only have 59 parking space. But that doesn't matter because they're right next to 100 different homes within 100 yards right there on Broadway. And these people are going to have to park in front of these homeowners, right? But you could care less. We already, have 50 special district parking where people have to pay $50 parking there in front of their own home. And here we're going to have lots of more of this because there's no parking in this thing, and you think 54 units with only 59 parking spaces. However, since this project is located in the residential area of Broadway, there are over 100 street parking spaces available in front of nearby Anaheim homes. Until soon, those homeowners must have a special parking district, which they must pay the $30 for a decal to park in front of their own home. So essentially, only fools believe that it is the underpaid workers of Anaheim that causes the residential street parking problems in Anaheim. That's not it. The real cause of these 7 is the 7 corrupt council members allowing inadequate parking for these apartments. So hopefully, I don't know why you people aren't in prison, why the FBI doesn't come and just go with a scam and lock you people up. Thank you for the time.
Someone else like to speak under public comments?
Yeah, I'm just curious about this definition here, Anaheim Housing Authority. None of you, said, no, it's not correct. This isn't the city council. So if it is the city council, why doesn't it say here city council instead of Anaheim Housing Authority? I mean, why be deceptive about it? Maybe someone can answer that. Item number 3 there. It's an agreement between the city and this developer. Why doesn't it just say that?
I'll take that, Mr. Mayor.
Well,
It's because the city council does not have the authority of the housing authority to do anything with housing. You have to act as the housing authority. Is that correct, John? I mean, that's kind of backwards, but the fact of the matter is, we have to act as both because this will come up into the city council.
Councilmember Crane, let me
John Woodhead.
defer to John Woodhead to answer that question.
Yeah, the housing authority is a separate legal entity, distinct from the city, and it is enabled by state law to exist. In every city, there exists, in a state of suspended animation, if you will, a housing authority, and it takes an action of the city council to activate and create the housing authority. And we have done so because there are a whole new set of rules and funding sources that are available to us as a housing authority. And it is a distinct legal entity, so when you act as the housing authority, you are the governing board of the housing authority. Yes, you are the same 7 members that form the city council of the city, but technically you are wearing a different hat.
So, thank you. No, I know it's, when I called to order the housing authority, so now we're acting as a housing authority. All right. Anyone else like to speak? Welcome.
Linda Lynn Queen, resident of Anaheim, Anaheim Poverty Task Force. You have our support for this project. Thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard on this item? So at this time, I'll close. Oops. Welcome. Welcome.
I just very quickly wanted to say, I like this. I like the detail, the architectural detail that they put into this. There's a lot of additional work in here that didn't have to be done. Somebody took a lot of care with this, and it cleans up a real problem spot, and it looks like it's all federal funding, so okay, shocker, I have no idea what Mr. Fitzgerald is talking about. Like, that's a surprise. But I like it. Just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to be heard on this item? So at this time, I'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions by the authority, housing authority? Councilmember Marino.
There was a comment made tonight of concern regarding any long-term residents that may be in the motel now, and what happens to them, especially if you're saying that if we agree to this purchase immediately, we're going to immediately vacate folks and not wait for the developer. Can you just talk to us, John, of what if there are long-term residents in that motel, because we know that there are a lot of families in that situation. If there are, where will we support them in relocating, and so that we're not displacing families?
We've done, we had our relocation consultant go out and do interviews with some of the folks that are occupying spaces in the Sandman, and they have indicated to us that nobody has established a residency there. They've all been transient occupants of that, and that they will not be entitled to relocation. Having said that, if we get on site, we will do a very thorough interview, and if anybody is entitled to relocation benefits, they will receive them, and we have budgeted quite a sum of money just in case that contingency comes into being. And again, they'll have all the relocation rights that I spoke of when we were speaking of the Avon Dakota project. They have a super priority when it comes to our Section 8 vouchers. There's money that they can take and seek housing elsewhere. So they'll have a number of options for them.
So in that event, it may be true with Avon Dakota. I'd like to ask if we could just get an update once all this happens, just so we know if there were families that we helped relocate. Just again, because we don't want folks working off other narratives that may just be whispered out there, that we're working off of follow-up with these families, if that's the case. And if there's zero, then you let us know there's zero.
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
I'll move the item for approval.
I've got a question. There's a question on parking. Can you address that parking? There's also a question on risk and risk to the authority or to the city council, if there's any, or the city of Anaheim taxpayers.
Okay, let me get to the parking first. They were eligible for a density bonus under their entitlements, and that would have allowed them to essentially park this with 27 spaces on site. We know how sensitive parking is, and we want to overpark our projects so that we don't have a negative impact on the neighborhoods. So we did our own parking analysis, and we are requiring 42 parking spaces there. To give you a sense of how we overpark our affordable housing projects, right next door at Rockwood, we parked in excess of code, and the majority of those parking spaces are going underutilized. About 25% are being used. So we make sure that our affordable housing projects, one, are some of the nicest properties in the neighborhoods in which we put them, and two, that they don't negatively impact with parking demands any of those neighborhoods. When it comes to risk, we are a little unique as a housing authority, and we typically hold on to the land and ground lease it to a developer, so that at the end of the day, if everything goes wrong, at least we've got the land. And at the end of 55 years, contrary to what you heard, all of that project reverts to us. So our legacy will be, we will leave the housing authority with a whole lot of units that it owns when all of these leases eventually expire. And so that's how we mitigate the risk on a lot of these projects.
So ultimately, we will own the property, the land and the property.
That's correct.
Councilmember Barnes.
Does this tie into number 38? Because I see 38 here, and I remember this about the high density on, and my thinking is that because this is senior housing, and should you in years to come rezone it to something, it's not?
I'm sorry, it doesn't relate to 38.
It doesn't?
No.
Okay, for the reclass. Okay, thank you.
Oh, it is?
The planning. It's the entitlement.
Oh, excuse me, I misspoke. It is the zoning action. Yes. It's got a companion item because of the funding in the city, and I didn't realize 38 was not the direct companion, but is related to the entitlements.
Right, so should I bring it up
Sure.
when we go to 38? Because that was about the high density and actually tying it into the parking.
Okay.
So I'll wait.
I think you could ask that question.
Yeah,
now.
you
Okay.
can ask me again. By code, they could get away with having 27 spaces. We never want to do the minimum that code requires, and so we did a parking analysis, and that analysis told us if you had 42, it would be adequate, and you would have no adverse impacts on the neighborhood. Also, if you take a look at the way the projects are oriented, you can't get from the neighborhoods to our project and vice versa. There is a physical barrier both at Rockwood and at the Sandman site, and they both take access off of Lincoln. So it would be difficult at best if you were to try and go around and park on Broadway. You'd have a pretty good walk around the block to get back into the units, and there's adequate parking on site, and so we don't think there's going to be an adverse impact.
Okay, but your evaluation was based that this would be a senior program, just senior.
Correct.
So 5-10 years down the line, you're not going to rezone it and then say, oh, you know what, that'd be great for single families. Well, then you just blew your evaluation. So I want to.
Because of the funding, they cannot change the nature, the fundamental nature of the project. So once it is being designated and funded as a senior housing project, it has to remain that way for 55 years.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Do I have a motion for approval?
I made the motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Kring, second by Councilmember Fessel. Please vote.
The vote is 6 ayes, no nays, with authority. Member Vanderbilt absent. The motion carries.
Very good. Item number 4.